It was a night like any other. Warm beer and a deli sandwich, which looked sadder than me. My phone hadn't rang in weeks. Business was slower than an all-star hacks game. But then she walked in. A vision of glamour that took my breath away, with legs that could sink a battleship. Gee, what a schmuck I was. I went to stand up and offer my hand, but before I could, she held her hand up and smiled like a wolf that had found a sleeping rabbit. She moved in and pushed an envelope to my chest. I slumped back in my chair. This girl had sass. Her eyes seemed to look into my soul, and it took my breath away. Leaning in real close, "Find him," she whispered softly into my ear, but with a threat that made my blood run cold. With that, she smiled like a predator, and then she left. Gone from the room and out of my life. I opened the envelope, looked at the $1,000 and saw a picture and a name. I poured myself a scotch, lit a cigarette, and stared at the picture that was now pinned to the back of my door. Where are you, Simon? And what does that creepy she-wolf want with your groovy podcast?
You have tuned in for a sleek podcast. I'm here to seek the truth. Live from Scotland around the UK. The one and only Sleek Podcast. Enjoy the show. Can I ask important questions? No matter how bizarre the truth might be. Tune in for Sleek Podcast. Keeping it real, keeping it groovy.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or a very good day to you when and wherever you're listening from. And a very warm welcome to the show. I'm your host, Simon Laurie King. Coming up on today's show, well, I don't actually have a guest for you. I did, but my system failed. I failed. And I really don't like that expression. We only fail if we choose to give up. But let's just say my system completely crashed and I dropped the ball. Believe me when I tell you that having that happen is incredibly stressful on so many levels. It happened once before when I was due to have Mark Devlin onto the show. Bottom line, my guest has graciously agreed to come back in the new year and discuss his excellent documentary, Frankenskies. Yes, Matt Landman will be joining us in the new year to talk about the pollution, manipulation of our once clear blue sky, and also of the weather and the early experiments by the UK and the US and even the Russians to make it rain, basically, in a nutshell. Check out the link below in the show notes and watch it for yourself. Draw your own conclusions. Conspiracy? Yes, but not in a crazy, mixed up, delusional way, although it sounds it, but as an actual uncovering of wrongdoing and thus of great concern, or at least I think so. Watch it for yourself, see what you think. So that conversation is definitely one I'm looking forward to having. I've never recorded an episode that has no interview guest. This is my first. But hold on, you are, of course, my guests also, my dear listeners. Without you, there would be no point to any of this. And for your company, it's greatly appreciated, and I thank you. So what to talk about then? It's not that there isn't anything, quite the opposite would be true. Let's start with the show and go from there. My very first episode aired on the 15th of January 2021, and my first guest was Jared Murphy. Listening to Jared was the main reason that encouraged me to start my own podcast. Since then, I've produced, including this one, 54 episodes. I regret having none of my guests, but wish I'd been better at production and attention to sound quality. But it's been a learning curve, and it continues. But back to the original point of having Jared on the show. I heard Jared on a podcast, and he said that there was an anomaly, there we go, off the coast of Cuba, and it looked like it was a sunken city, or a city that had once been land, above the waves, as it were, but 50,000 years ago. But the podcaster, I'm paraphrasing, just said, oh, right, okay, and they moved on. And I thought, no, wait, hang on, let's talk about that. So in a nutshell, I'd started my own podcast. And as I said, it's been a learning curve. I don't have sponsors on this show or sell any products, which is why the show has fictional products advertised, fictional show buffers at the beginning. And I did start doing a mini drama, which I will go back to. It. I think it's fun and certainly adds seasoning, in my opinion, to the show. Whether it be foodtowear.com, scarydolly.com, Carol on Buckets, or Sunside, the list goes on, and I do enjoy doing them. Of the many fictitious adverts I've written and produced, I really enjoy them. I find them satisfying, and to be honest, it fits in nicely with the rhythm of this show's genre. I think so. Would I sell real products? Maybe, but they or it would have to be something that I thought useful and of good value. I drink coffee, right? But I only drink espresso, so it would have to be espresso, and it would have to be ethical, not made by young children in the slave trade. I don't know, but this is a hobby, this podcast, so that's not why it was set up. So it really, yeah. Goals and guests. I'd like this podcast, of course, to reach as many people as possible in the future. My sound and production has to be spot on, as I've said, and it is a learning curve, and I'm working on it. And believe me, this show mantra is talking to interesting people. I like talking to people. I like hearing their story, reading their books, and then talking about it. In an ideal world, I'd like there to be no guest snobbery. Don't get me wrong, all of my guests that I've had have been absolutely spot on, and I'm really, really grateful they've come onto the show. But this simply means I'm not asked how many episodes or subscriptions I have, so determine whether or not they come onto the show. I personally find that incredibly ignorant and an insult to myself and you, my dear listeners. No matter your status in life, whether you believe yourself to be the darling of society or such a star that burns too bright for this show, here's the thing. You are a person, born naked and vulnerable, and to pass from this life in that same way. We are all akin to this. All I ask is that you show some semblance of being humble, get over yourself, and come onto the show and have a conversation. This I say for the other podcasters out there also, as it's damn frustrating when seeking guests and you're constantly facing huge impenetrable forests of tall and looming egos. After bleating on and on about blatant rudeness, I'll give you one last example. I approached a potential guest recently and their response was, "Can you send me an example of your work?" So I did this, although I wouldn't call it work. And to be honest with you, that kind of caught me off guard. Normally I just wouldn't even reply. Anywho, I did this and they never replied. Not even a thank you. I'll take a listen and get back to you. Just a zero response. So in a perfect scenario, I'd have guests from those listening to this show also initially themselves, as I do out the show. So I thought that really quite rude, and it took me back. Anyway, and let's talk about it. So if you want to come onto the show, remember, you're just human, okay? Regardless of your social standing or what you've achieved. If you don't want to, that's okay. That's not a problem. You don't even have to reply to my email, but when it comes to how many subscribers you have or what's your coverage, how many downloads, you know what? Don't bother. Okay then, we've mentioned that particular elephant in the studio. So where next? A concern of mine, and definitely a future topic of discussion that I think would make a great conversation with a guest, would be the rise of AI. And these would be my questions. And if you are that expert, drop me a line. So the questions. As I always start off, let's get the ball rolling on this one. As an expert on AI technology, could you start off by defining what AI is currently and where the creators would aim for it to be? So describe where it is. I understand that it's in a lot of our technology, and where the creators are aiming it to be. What responsibilities are they going to give it? Is it going to be free reign? Right, question 2. So then, at peak efficiency, would we potentially be looking at one all-seeing artificial intelligence that would hold dominion over our lives, or would there be more than one? A council of intelligences brought forth from the digital world to oversee this once rational world of ours, because I think it would be irrational, to be honest with you, if you gave free rein to an artificial intelligence. Just saying. Anyway, question 3, where is it? Where does this, as I am becoming more convinced to realise, this self-aware artificial intelligence live? Is it in one place? I'll add that its influence is in nearly everything that electronically hums, pings, or is smart in such an ever-increasingly dumb way. But where is it? Does it reside in one place, centrally, or is it ethereal, consciousness set free and in no need of a central home point? I think that obviously is relevant. That's an add-on, by the way. Question 4. A creation of a super self-aware sentient intelligence, and as I said before, I think it is sentient, or at least getting there, that surpasses all those humans that have ever lived before it. Just think, the combined knowledge of all the greatest thinkers. This would include all knowledge of science and the many disciplines, mathematics, physics, then all there is to know about art, poetry, strategy, politics, music, philosophy. The list goes on and on. However, here's the thing. There is no empathy whatsoever. Consequently, zero thinking about morality and decency. Lack those, and common sense is out of the equation also. Now that is a big one. Do you see where I'm going with this? Why would science create such an unfeeling, clever, self-deciding potential dictator? And is there an off switch? Question 5. Search and rescue, exploration in the medical field and such. Could you give some examples that you would agree that AI is a very useful tool for our development? And it is. Okay, I'll say that. There is definitely a place for artificial intelligence, 100%. But where's the line, yeah? Where is that line? This far, no further. Anyway, question 6. Inserting a marble into my nose as a child wasn't one of my best ideas. A trip to an early 1970s A&E department was weird to say the least. But the idea of deliberately placing computer components into one's skull here in 2023 seems insane, and in this show's opinion, downright kooky. And just to underline this, there are companies actively involved in making this a thing. And more worrisome, there are people I've spoke with that actually think this is a great idea. But like me back in the 1970s in the ER room, they are going to realise it wasn't the smartest thing to have done. But in my case, the marble came out. No harm done. Would the chip be removable? Question 7. Call centres. Let's talk call centres. Because it seems to me that the ripest cherry on the tree right now to highlight, as far as the problems with early AI, is the lack of empathy. And the place, if you want to feel frustrated, just like you're talking to an apple and need an answer to a crucial question with just as much response as said parlay, is an AI phone inquiry labyrinth. Bottom line is the fact that the responsibility of communicating with your customers by big corporate, etc., and listening and giving a crap is apparently no longer an obligatory thing, and thus now could be handed over to a cold, unfeeling algorithm. Talk to me about that. Question 8. If I were to give you the keys to the kingdom right now, what changes would you make and why? Well, that would be my guest opinion, so there's no point in me commenting on that. Question 9. I love our little dog Lily. She is such a complete joy. There's a point to this. We have a communication between us. We have cats and we have badgers that we interact with on a daily basis. I've brought on and released quite a few wild birds of different species. I've also travelled this land of Britain with a horse and wagon, but at no point have any of these beautiful creatures really understood me. They don't understand road tax. They don't understand the politics of this country. They don't understand the need for fuel for my car or going to work and earn a living and etc. So as far as AI goes, the same can be said about that. The non-human intelligence, it will never get or understand the human condition, the needs, the isms that we call the human condition. It will never be able to relate, or will it, in your opinion? So I think that would be a great episode. So those are the questions, and there is a guide. All right, I give my guests 10 questions as a guide. They can take it down any rabbit hole they want. I just thought I'd share those with you. All right, and I think that would be a great episode. And I'm putting it out there that I'll find a guest to discuss this. Fingers crossed. Another conversation I'd like to talk about in the coming new year would be people and how we've changed. The way we came together 10 years ago, for instance, compared to the present day, is a poor, malnourished shadow of its former family and friends orientated self. I'm seeing lots of fractures in our relationships as a whole, and this seems across the board with a lot of people I talk with. It's not just our family, my friends, and just across the board. The way you talk to people, the way you always used to be there for each other. But here's the thing, something in the zeitgeist has definitely changed, that's for sure. I've also noticed some really irritating isms are becoming more forefront. When someone you haven't talked to in a while says this little chestnut, "I'm sorry, I haven't called you, I've been so busy." Okay, I'm not expecting anything, it's just nice to hear from them. But why then do people say the former? Are they expecting me to believe that for 6 months they have had zero time whatsoever to themselves, not 2 minutes? 6 months of constant free time imprisonment. That's not a thing. I don't believe it, and therefore why base a phone call, text or meeting with anyone on that false starting premise? Again, I'll say that I don't need an explanation. Honestly, I'm good with that. Or if you want to keep it real, then just tell me I pissed you off, or I just couldn't be bothered. I'm okay with that, as the above counts for me also. But starting off with, "Oh, I've just been so busy," it's a falsity and no basis for an honest conversation. Life is very taxing at the best of times, so no explanation needed. If you want to speak with me, then do it. But please, just speak your truth, okay? I'm alright with that. I think that if people are going to get through this decade with some semblance of sanity, then we need to talk honestly and with others in mind, okay? The basis of a conversation saying a lie is just not a good basis for a conversation at all. It's rather, let's just not talk. I understand this has been weird with the 3-4 years of whatever it's been of weirdness, COVID, and have you had your inoculations? No, I haven't, then I can't talk to you, blah blah, all that sort of thing. But it's more than that. It's more than that. Okay, all right. Oh, excuse me. I thought I'd turn my phone off. Hi, you're through to the Slick Podcast.
This is Acting Commander Flag of the Imperial Warbird Cyrus.
Good to talk to you, Commander. How can I help you today?
Your world is in danger, eh? A fleet of hostile warships is heading towards your planet right now. You see?
That's really concerning. I hope you don't mind me saying so. You sound different.
Different how?
Well, you sound like you're from Falkirk. You don't sound like your classic Klingon.
That would make you racist.
Wait, what? No, I'm not racist, Clang. I was just saying that you sounded a bit different.
Silence! Not all Klingons speak in a stereotype way. You're profiling me, you're forcing a role onto me, and doesn't sit well, you see?
Hang on. Whoa, stop. Let's take a step back. I didn't mean any offence, okay? I just thought that, you sounded different. I really appreciate you calling in and letting us know that we could be invaded by aliens at any time. And for any misunderstanding, I really apologise.
Misunderstanding? Is that right? You think I'm stupid? I can't understand you now? Is that it? I'm calling you in good faith to update you on an imminent invasion of your planet, and you're just being racist.
That's not what I meant, Clang, and you know it. I'm not racist.
Racist?
Well, that was quite random, wasn't it? I wasn't expecting Clang to call. Nice to hear from him, but that is miscommunication. So anyway, let's take a break and we will be right back after this message.
Hi, I'm Richard Murray, and I'd like to tell you about Housefly.com. You might remember me from the 1998 film, A Very Country Practice, where I played the lovable North Yorkshire rogue, Dr. Samuel Bingham. I'm really excited to tell everyone about Housefly's range of flying abodes. Housefly.com is seen on Channel 9 in CNN's very own The Steve Gripper Show. Housefly.com help thousands of families relocate and can help you also to have the dream of the flying house your family wants and deserves. Don't invest in bricks and mortar. Instead, see our full range of light alloy nanotech, anti-gravity tiled buildings. Get to know the cutting-edge red mercury-based technology firsthand for yourself. Give your family the best above-the-clouds real estate that your social standing credits will buy. And don't forget, with constantly changing views and locations, there's only one choice to make. Use the promo code SLICKPODCAST23 to get a massive 5% discount on compulsory aviation home piloting certification. Housefly.com. I mean, why wouldn't you?
The Sleep Podcast. Yeah, it's a Sleep Podcast. Truly unforgettable topic. This is the Sleep Podcast.
As I mentioned before, Robert Coppers is coming back to the show in January to talk about his brother Michael's journey from this life. So I'm going to read this book overview to give you an idea of the story and the interview coming up. So the book is called Michael's Cloak, and this is the book overview. So I'll read it as best as I can here. So if I stutter or get it wrong, forgive me. Life can only be understood at the end, looking back, while the way to live it is going forward. When I reached the end, I was surprised. Something new is added to my thoughts and to my being, to who I am. Michael lived in Amsterdam in the 90s. He was a handsome young man, intelligent, successful, and the people who got to know him also thought he was fun, interesting and kind. He was passionate about using his many talents to change the world for the better. After all, in his early childhood he had lived in Iran, and as a fortunate child of wealthy parents he had witnessed poverty, had seen dictatorship from the then ruling Shah, and had feared the religious fundamentalists. Hence, he was determined to devote his time and energy to enhancing freedom of speech and human dignity. He started energetically, but soon he was diagnosed with AIDS. That's forced him to face the fact that his life would be shorter than he had thought. He couldn't accept it. He struggled to find out why his life was cut short. He looked for clues in the past because as a child he had not always been so fortunate. He remembered that in Iran he had had a very confusing and painful experience in the swimming pool. In the meantime, he had to tell his friends and family. That was really hard, but even more difficult was how to accept the gradual but unstoppable deterioration of his own body. Could he change his destiny? Fortunately, there was a lot of help. His illness gave everyone involved, including Michael, the unique opportunity to show and express love. This would never happen without his illness, or would never have happened, without his illness. The moving picture of Michael and his evolving situation is portrayed from both his perspective and that of his close friends and relatives. Serious and humorous events alternate. It is about human resilience and the desire to pursue a goal. A moving story about love, care and dignity. A very powerful story and such a good book. I definitely recommend reading it if you have the opportunity. I'm definitely looking forward to Robert coming back to the show and talking about it. If you have the opportunity to read the book, then please do so. It really is a great, great story. What else? Oh, and I'd like to talk about energy vampires at some point with a guest. A discussion about those who suckle unknowingly, or more worrisome, those who know they do it, on our energy. Even situations or places can have this effect. Here's a few lines dedicated to the subject I penned a few years ago. The energy vampire. The phone rings or the door sounds a knock. Upon answering, the feeling of disappointment descends upon me. Blown in upon an ice-cold wind of, oh no, not again. Before me stands the energy vampire, the one who would suckle on my emotions and drain me of a good mood, as if it were blood, eagerly partaking of this sustenance and giving no heed to any but itself. Their words carry one meaning only: self, self, self. This wretched creature stands in the bucket of crap they call their life and beckons me to stand with them, but I refuse. It tries to drag me into the mire of hopelessness that it wallows in. On and on they bleat about themselves with no regard to others or to the blinding light that is the truth. It shades itself from this light, looks away and tries to cover me with its cloak of misery, stating, "There is room for you as well, we can be cold together." Still ignoring my counsel, refusing to peer out from its depression, Its eyes still speak hunger for energy and my life in its entirety. Begone, foul wretch, I think to myself, and make excuses to bring this time to an end. At the parting, the vampire states that it feels much better having talked to me. Yes, I think to myself, you've just drained me and fed off my energy, again. But this will be the last time, as I will be ready for your next visit or call. The stake of home truth will pierce your cold, selfish heart. I shall silence your pitiful whining by shielding myself with not giving a damn. And finally, I will speak the mantra of, there are far worse off than you. Begone, vampire. So, bottom line, I understand people have problems. I get that. Completely. But there are people in life, there are situations in life that are very, very draining. There are people in life that make this part of their persona. And they don't have to be like that. If they ring you for advice or they ring you for a chat, that's okay. But when it's the same old thing, day in, day out, day in, day out, and the quick fix is really obvious, but they choose to ignore it. That's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about anybody that has real problems. Of course I will help. Of course I will. But listen to that again, the energy vampire, or you might say, well, yeah, I get that. Everybody has one, right? The phone rings and you kind of cover the receiver and you look at your partner and go, no, not again. You know, and Jet would just like do the thing with the finger, you know, wind it up. So that's what and whom I'm talking about. So I'm really excited about the future guests coming onto the show in the new year. One of those that we will also be talking to is Sam Mandel, CEO of the Ketamine Clinic, Los Angeles. They are a world-renowned ketamine clinic specializing in intravenous infusion of ketamine for various mental health conditions such as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, suicidal thoughts, and other mood disorders. Co-founded by Dr. Stephen L. Mandel and now CEO Sam Mandel in 2014, KCLA emerged as one of the pioneering ketamine clinics in the United States, with a strong focus on reshaping and redefining mental health care. Interestingly also, that they are excited about the healing potential of other psychedelics like MDMA and psilocybin, aiming to integrate these medicines and others into the practice when they become legally available. So that will definitely be an interesting conversation for sure. I did read somewhere that there are some practitioners in countries or states in America or other countries that psychedelics are legal, that people that are diagnosed with terminal illnesses are being treated as part of end-of-life treatment with psychedelics. So I'll have to ask Sam if he has read about this and has an opinion on it. That'll be quite good.
So that will be an interesting conversation for sure. Looking forward to that one. I briefly touched upon what I'd like to talk about and the upcoming guests that I already have booked for 2024. Well, it's time to wrap up this episode. My thanks for your time today, my dear listeners, in attending this cast. I do hope it has been a reasonable solo effort on my part. Like I say, it's my first attempt at such. And as I've recorded and uploaded this episode on Christmas Eve, you all have my very best wishes for this time of year. In fact, I encourage everyone that is excited about tomorrow to hold that feeling, but all year round. Be kind to everyone. If you're able to reach out to those on their own right now and are less fortunate than yourself, please do so. It's the right thing to do. Personally, to all my family and friends that I haven't spoken with in a while, know this: I am thinking of you and sending you hugs your way. Take them or not, it's up to you. And finally, to those we have lost and have passed through the great veil from this life, we still love you and will always miss you. And I now raise my glass in your honour and memory. If you enjoyed this show, as I've done my best producing this solo non-attending guest episode, give it a like or leave a comment below. Subscribe also if you'd be so kind, or send the show an email, as mentioned earlier, the slkpodcast@gmail.com. But either way, please keep them kind. You can find the Simon Laurie King podcast on YouTube, Universum, as well as Apple and most of the main podcast catchers. And so, my friends, it's time for me to go. Until next time, stay safe, be happy, and certainly not afraid. Bye.
Slick Podcast. Keeping it real and always keeping it groovy.